If you've been around long-distance cycling for a while, you've probably seen these pictures before. Grisly images of ultra-distance cyclists with their heads supported by PVC pipes and duct tape. This is the result of a condition called Shermer's neck, where basically the neck muscles become too tired to support the head after a certain distance of cycling. We mostly associate this condition with competitive ultra-distance races like the Transcontinental Race or the Race Across America. But it can also happen on non-competitive events like during a brevet. In today's video, let's explore what is Shermer's neck, how does it happen, how can we prevent it, and I'll share a personal story about how I may have set a new speed record for acquiring the condition. Let's dive in. Shermer's neck was first observed in 1983 in the Race Across America, where cyclist Michael Shermer experienced the condition about 2,000 kilometers into his bid. His neck muscles just stopped supporting his head, which went limp. The condition continued to appear after that, again mostly in ultra-distance races. After some interviews and talking with people who experienced the condition, some patterns started to emerge, and we started to get a better understanding of how the condition happens and what its different effects could be. It's thought that the main cause of Shermer's neck is prolonged static load, basically the accumulated effect of holding our heads up over multiple days of cycling. The condition typically occurs after at least 800 kilometers of cycling in sort of an ultra-distance context where there's not much sleep and not much rest and recovery. Because Shermer's neck is a condition that's only observed in ultra-distance cyclists, it's not been very well studied. So we mostly have to rely on people's personal reports or the reports of doctors who have worked with cyclists who've experienced the condition. There seems to be a range of expressions and a range of symptoms that occur when someone acquires Shermer's neck. For some, the onset is really gradual, where they start to feel some pain or inability to keep their head up, but are able to make small changes to delay the complete onset of the condition. For others, it just happens immediately, and they're just suddenly unable to keep their head up. For some people, it's painless, and they express just having a strange sensation that their neck just wasn't working. For others, it can be quite painful. Even the type of onset can be different. For some, it happens while they're on the bike, during activity, and for others, they wake up the morning after a decent night's sleep to find that their neck is no longer holding their head up. These different qualities make Shermer's neck feared and kind of a mysterious condition. However, there are a range of other factors that have been linked to a higher probability of acquiring Shermer's neck. First is having low sleep and low amounts of recovery. The condition is almost exclusively seen in ultra-distance cyclists who often ride through the night and experience very low amounts of sleep, especially in events like Race Across America, where they might go 48 hours straight with only a little catnap. Other cyclists who ride a lot, like Pro Tour level riders, they're riding 7 or perhaps 8 hours a day, and they're able to do that week after week without experiencing Shermer's neck. That's likely due to having enough time to sleep and recover from their exercise. Another factor is previous neck injury. Even early on in the observations of Shermer's neck, a lot of the people who experienced the condition interviewed and had experienced some kind of car crash that caused whiplash or some other kind of neck injury. So there is a link between previous neck injury and acquiring Shermer's neck. Aero bars are another factor that's strongly linked to Shermer's neck, especially very low or very aggressive positions. Multiple riders reported having aero bars equipped to their bike and experiencing strong headwinds in the time leading up to when they got Shermer's neck. Anyone who uses aero bars extensively knows that when you're riding through a headwind, you have a tendency to scrunch your neck a little bit more and try to get a bit more aggressive of a position to be more efficient when the headwinds are really strong. Lastly, things like backpacks, heavy objects in our jersey pockets, and especially adding flashlights to our helmets have also been linked to having a higher probability of Shermer's neck. So that's a little bit about what Shermer's neck is and how it happens. About 2 months ago, I think I may have set a new record for acquiring Shermer's neck in the least amount of time and the least amount of distance cycled. Hopefully by sharing this story, it can build understanding about Shermer's neck and hopefully save some pain and anguish for anyone who sees this video. My story starts at New Year's this year, where I had a minor surgery on my trapezius on the back of my neck, here on my left side. I followed doctor's orders for recovery, spending a few days at the hospital and about 2 weeks before even basic levels of activity were possible. From there, I went on some walks, starting for an hour, moving up to 2-hour walks, and eventually moving to indoor cycling. Again, 45 minutes at first, moving up to an hour, and over the course of a few months, I was able to build up to 100K cycling. And that was with just a little bit of soreness, but no real pain. From there, I was able to do a 200K practice ride that was preparation for the first official brevet of the year. There's a 300K that my city was doing, and it was a beautiful course. So I really wanted to be able to do that. The 300K was actually quite successful. It was beautiful. It was a little bit cold, but it was a course I was familiar with and was able to finish just, again, minor soreness, but no real pain. 2 weeks after that, that's where my problems really began. With a tough 400K only 2 weeks out, I thought this flat 200 would be a great opportunity for testing and for training. I wanted to test fueling strategies, I wanted to test my legs, and I also wanted to train up my lower back, which historically has been my weakest link for long distance events. To do this, I thought I would slam my stem to give a little bit of extra stress onto my lower back. And it would also be nice because there were projected to be really strong headwinds in the second half of the course. And the 200K went pretty smoothly. The first half of the course was beautiful, fueling and pacing were fine, and I wasn't really feeling any problems from the slammed stem. On the way back, though, there were some headwinds. The headwinds were pretty strong. To compensate for that, I did tuck in a little bit more than usual to my aero bars position. So instead of a nice, comfortable position like this, I ducked my head down and poked my chin out just a little bit more. That does put extra strain on the neck, but it was noticeably more aerodynamic too. I ended up finishing the 200K in under 8 hours, which was, I think, a personal best and something I had been hoping to do for a while. So I felt pretty chuffed heading back to the house to just have a nice normal evening. It wasn't until the day after that problems arose. The next morning, I woke up with awful pain, but I'm in my late 30s now, so I thought it was just getting old. It took until maybe lunchtime when I realized this wasn't just sleeping on a pillow the wrong way. It felt like there was an elastic band that was holding, I'll adjust it here. It felt like an elastic band was pulling my shoulders back and that my head couldn't support itself. There's a really famous picture of James Hayden, and it felt like I was in that picture. That exact same feeling of my head slumped forward and my shoulders pulled back. It felt terrible. At first, I couldn't believe it. Nobody gets Shermer's neck on a 200K. This is a condition for Race Across America cyclists on day 5 with no sleep. Looking at other people's reports, it didn't really match up either. Most of the reports were of just the neck stopped working in sort of a painless way, and also most were reported on the bike during an event. It wasn't until I read Felix Wong's report on Shermer's neck that it really hit me that that's what happened. I did get Shermer's neck on a 200K. My feelings and experiences matched his really well, just on a much shorter time scale. And looking back at the conditions, it makes sense. Even early on, it was clearly linked that people with previous neck injuries were much more prone to Shermer's neck. And instead of an 8-year gap between a car crash with whiplash, I was 3 months out from surgery on my neck. My neck doesn't know the difference between surgery and an injury. So that checks out a lot. And also the commonality of getting in an extra aggressive position on the aero bars, that's exactly what I did for a lot longer than I normally do. The experiences and the symptoms of Shermer's neck have been pretty well reported on at this point, but one thing that's not been reported on much is the after effects and the recovery. Some reports said that within 2 days and maybe 2 weeks, most of the motor control of the neck should return to normal. That was the same for me. It took 5 days before most of my motor control came back, but that didn't mean that I was fully recovered. It was still had some lingering soreness, and just trying to ride my bike to work, within 2 minutes I had sharp pain in my neck. even though I was riding my upright mountain bike. So yeah, motor control and full recovery are not the same thing. One person who did report on their recovery process was Felix Wong, and he mentioned that for about 3 months he was unable to ride his bike. At about 6 months he was able to do short rides without pain, and it took a full year before he was willing to do longer rides again. That's a really long time, and my process in that recovery is, again, unfortunately matching Felix's experience. So what can we take away from all of this? I think the first thing to consider is that Shermer's neck is not just a condition for ultra-distance racers going thousands of miles across continents. This can and does happen to randonneurs too. And it could even happen on a shorter event if you have a history of neck injury or, like me, had a recent surgery. But there are also steps we can take to mitigate this risk. For multi-day brevets, we can employ sleep strategies that allow for recovery. We can wear lightweight helmets and avoid putting lights on them because that adds to the prolonged static load that's linked to Shermer's neck. If you're using aero bars, you can use a stack of spacers under them to raise them up high enough to maintain a relaxed, comfortable position and avoid doing things to your neck to try to eke out those last bits of aerodynamics because that adds undue stress on the neck too. So between those things and avoiding heavy objects in our pockets and avoiding backpacks, we should be able to mostly mitigate the risk of Shermer's neck. Well, Shermer's neck has been a major setback for me personally, and especially with my motivations and feelings. If you've experienced Shermer's neck, I'd love to hear your experience in the comments for the video. And if you haven't, I hope that you never do. And hopefully this video added some value and can help you prevent experiencing this condition. As for me though, not all hope is lost. While I can't ride my bike for very long distances right now, I still hope to achieve super randonneur status for this year. All that's going to take is a secret weapon, the recumbent bicycle. Subscribe and stay tuned and see how that goes. Hope you all ride safe and see you in the next video.